So this is the Saturday morning in Thailand call and Friday evening call in the U.S. And that we were just started to talk about that the Dhamma is basically everything is already arrived, everything is already there, and that in the West, can you turn your mic off? You've got a chicken
Yeah.
behind you. So uh, in the West, we are trained to get stuff done. We are trained to perform, starting actually with the first grade, that our toys are taken away from us and we're put to work at about the age of 6. And we have to go to school, we've got appointments, especially if we've got a soccer mom or a helicopter mom, then there's just always some sort of activity, extracurricular as well as in there, and we're trained that way. And so this is what Eric was beginning to experience. I had it too. Is that when I was at the back of Wat Suan Mook, or while Eric is out there in uh, backcountry Wat in Laos, he was complaining, saying that this is not challenging for him. And my answer to that is that, oh, having no challenges is quite a challenge for you, because we're used to having challenges. We're used to having work to do. We're used to having things that need to be done. And the whole point about a village wat, or actually more of the forest wats, is to remove as much stimulus as possible. To not have televisions, not have radios, not have visitors, not have much of anything to do. And there you are. How are you going to deal with it? And one of the things that comes up for us is restlessness, which is the one of the major issues with the hindrances, as well as it's built in. It's instinctual for us. I think, in fact, that in our society in the very, very early days of being hunters and gatherers, that we were out on the hunt. We went out to do things. And now we're in an environment to where there's nothing to do, and that restlessness that's built in from, let us say, the instincts uh, to have, to procreate. That word procreate, by the way, means to create, to positively create things. The manifestation of that is materialism. And so we have a lot of material possessions that we got because we were restless. We were looking for something. That, in fact, you've heard me talk about greed and ill will as part of the second noble truth. And that dukkha is wanting things that we don't have. Well, if we don't have them, that means then if I want it, I would be better off if I had it, which means that we're not good enough when we want things. But underlying that wanting is a basic restlessness, that we go out looking for things to want. We go shopping. This is, in fact, a good example of that is the shopaholic. We go out looking for things to want. We go window shopping, trying to find something to want. So underlying that wanting is this basic restlessness, which is kind of a dissatisfying position anyway. That's why the shopaholics go shopping, is because they're not content to just sit at home with nothing to do. And yet, the important point that comes with the teaching of the Buddha is that we have already got what we need. There is no need for us to want to go out shopping when we're okay right here, right now. And so, one of the stories that I tell about that is Pilgrim's Progress. Have you ever heard? It's a Middle Ages book, and it's actually a Christian book, but I'm using the title of it because the Europeans would go to modern day Israel, what they call the Holy Lands, and they would go then travel and travel and travel and get to one of the holy sites finally. And once they got there, they'd spend a little time resting up, and then they would go tourism to another holy site. And in fact, I just saw a Google search that brought up a site 25 of the most beautiful Thai Wats. All right. Now, the Thai will go to the Wat to be at the Wat. The Westerner goes to the Wat as a tourist, and he doesn't stay there. He goes to another Wat. And when he gets there, he goes to another Wat. He spends most of the time traveling and very little time in the Wat. And that's exactly how we have our mentality of being a pilgrim, and that we're on our way. And in Buddhism, we would talk about it in the various Buddhist terms. But the term that I would use here now is a holy place. We're looking for a landing spot. We're looking for a holy place. And we always, let us say, dismiss or put down the holy place that we're in right now, and we get up and we go to another holy place. We travel and travel and travel, and very rarely do we get a chance to actually rest. And after we're rested up, the restlessness comes back up, and off we go again. Now, in Western language, we would use this restlessness in the terms of boredom. When you're bored, what do? You're looking for something to do. You're looking for some entertainment. That when I was in Watsuanok, I remember at one time, because I was been basically on retreat for quite a long time, about 3 months, and I got bored. And I recognized eventually that the boredom was and the thoughts about, oh, I should go back to the West, I could get a job, I can make so much money, and why am I sitting here doing nothing? And the answer to that is that my boredom and restlessness was coming from the fact that I wasn't practicing correctly. That I could, in fact, sit there and just enjoy the fact that I've got no responsibilities and nothing to do. That I have arrived. That I'm already in that holy place. That I'm already at the place that I was looking for. I'm at home now. And yet, look in the West how much time people spend actually at home. No, all day long they're out working, and then on the weekend they're out traveling. We go shopping. We've always got something to do and some reason to leave home. And then we don't ever get the feeling of actually having a place of home. That's one of the things that I understood most specifically is that when I arrived at Watsuanok, I felt like I was at home finally. Finally, I was at home. And then a year later, after a long retreat, I didn't feel at home anymore. I was restless again, wanting to go. And so back to Eric, he's saying that he's got no challenges in that Wat in Laos. And the answer is that, oh, you are challenged by having no challenges. So, Avery, when can you come to the point of recognizing that it's okay for you to not have any challenges, to not have anything to do? That you've already got everything you need, you're already at the right place. and we can just sit and relax. This is good enough. And then that restlessness will come back up.
Can you hear
Go
me,
ahead.
by the way? Me or Daniel? Because Daniel also has his hand raised, and he was before me.
Okay, Daniel.
How is the connection for you, Avery? Because for me, Dhammarato is breaking up sometimes. So I'm just wondering if it's my connection or Dhammarato's connection.
My connection's been all right.
Oh,
It's
okay,
been
then it's probably mine.
pretty good.
So my question was like, this is like exactly the problem that I've been facing, and that is that I will go from one place to another because this place this and that is not good enough, and then I go to the next place, and usually I will feel at home for like 3 weeks, and then I will feel like then I will start to see like, yeah, but this little thing is, it's not quite right, and, and then I will go to the next place. But
Mm-hmm.
yeah, like I'm more and more starting to realize that I feel like I just have to like bite the bullet and just stay there and not move and just accept the challenge of not having any challenges,
Yeah.
because I'm like robbing myself of the opportunity to
Mm-hmm.
like go through with it. And
What do you mean by bite the bullet? That's a very interesting phrase.
yeah, I was already thinking about that because for me it feels like it's quite like tough to go through it like at the beginning, because like at this moment I'm at a new place, so practicing now goes quite easily. Actually, yesterday I stumbled into the first jhana because I'm at a fresh place and all the nature is so beautiful and this and that, and then the practice goes really easily and I get into the first jhana.
Mm-hmm.
And but bite the bullet, yeah, basically I anticipate that it will be tough, and yeah, that's already a hindrance. I know
Yes,
that.
exactly.
I will say that I know that the hindrance will come up more when I get bored, but
Mm-hmm.
I guess the hindrance is already there, but I'm not seeing it.
Well, the restlessness comes up as a hindrance, but there is the underlying tendency of that restlessness. It's the underlying tendency of, I would say that it's the territorial instinct, that it has to do with traveling, it has to do with going, it has to do with uh, not feeling at home right now. And so, if we can, in fact, see that restlessness for what it is, and recognizing that the hindrances arise because of a trigger, but that the underlying tendency was already there.
Yeah,
Okay. It's like a scab on the arm is a scab, but underneath that scab is an injury. So, in that regard, we can say that that underlying tendency of the restlessness will then manifest itself in the present moment when there's some sort of trigger, when something sets it off. That can be actually an event, it can be a thought, it can be, um, you, for instance, you can look at a tree and have the thought, oh, isn't that a lovely tree? And I feel really at home with this tree, and this tree is really magnificent. And oh, I'm so happy to be here in this tree and look at it out in the yard. And then tomorrow I look at that tree and I says, oh, I've seen that tree before. Where's a new tree to enjoy? Instead of going back to that tree and feeling back at home again. So anything can trigger that restlessness. The question is, can we actually see that so that we can do something about it? Or are we doomed to go back into that state of restlessness without coming to that statement that I made? Oh, that just meant the reason I got restless is because I wasn't practicing correctly. If I was practicing correctly, I would actually enjoy letting the energy come out of all that restlessness to deflate that balloon. And that everything is all right just as it is. That in fact, this is the purpose of these forest monasteries, is to prevent us from having a lot of stuff to do so that we can start dealing with these underlying tendencies.
Yeah, just one quick question about that. Well, not quick probably, but yeah, is it then a bad choice to be at a wat that actually has like a lot of things to do? Because I kind of like came here with the idea like, oh, I can stay here a long time because there's more to do. But maybe at the same time, I'm like hindering myself from, yeah, actually becoming at ease with the restlessness.
Mm-hmm. Right. That in fact, that's the work that we have to do, is to stop having work to do. That look at it in the sense that you are at home now, that you are fulfilled, that there is no place to go and nothing to do, and we can just relax rather than being driven by this feeling of being restless, this feeling of being bored, this feeling of looking for something to complete us because we're already complete. Everybody is already complete. Everybody is already enlightened until they think they're not. We're already at home until we think we're not. We're already happy until we think we're not. And so whenever we think that this is not good enough, we can see that and say, wait a minute, everything already is good enough. We can take it out of that negative space that is generated through these underlying tendencies and replace them with, wow, what a relief it is. There's no place to go and nothing to do. And yes, I can hang out, and anything that needs to be done can be done later. Let's enjoy this moment. This moment is great. It's good enough. And everything that needs to be done will be done in due time. Can I do it happily, or do I have to do it because I need to do it? One of the things that I have also seen with students is that they will go from one retreat to another retreat to another retreat. And they're in this retreat, and as soon as it's finished, they've already got a plan to go to the next retreat. They finish at Indira, and then they want to go to Deepa Bhawan, and then they want to go from Deepa Bhawan to some other place in Chiang Mai, and then they're in Chiang Mai, and now this is not good enough anymore. Let me go find someplace new. And in fact, what we really need to do is to recognize that where we are right now is just fine, good enough. Got no worries, no problems. But you see, that goes against our training. Our training is that you've got to go get something that you're not whole, you're not complete, you're not at home, you've got to go. And so we'll get up out of this retreat when it finishes and go to some other retreat. When in fact, if we were practicing correctly in the first retreat, then we wouldn't need a second retreat because we had already felt like, oh, I finally arrived, there's no place to go.
They do have a part here where there's like more seclusion. So there's like two parts to this wat. One part that's like really removed from the main part where there's like a lot to do.
Mm-hmm.
So on the one hand, when I listen to you, I feel like, oh, I should just be happy where I am now. On the other hand, I think like, oh, there's a lot of like distractions here, so maybe I should just go to the secluded part. And because there is like, of course, the wisdom to right here is good enough, but you also had to go to what's your mock to realize that, right?
Mm-hmm.
So there is a good place for it. So yeah, what do I do?
You can go to the abbot and ask him to give you a kuti in the more secluded area. You can say that, hey, I have settled down so much so that the front part of the Wat, which is pretty laid back all on its own, is now um, that you've gotten to that level of laid back. You can now go to the back part of the Wat to where there really is nothing happening. That a lot of the forest Wats are like that, that there's going to be a dining hall and there's going to be all of this stuff is fairly close to the front door of the Wat or the front gate. Okay, let us say within maybe about 100 meters, maybe 500 meters. But then, because of the forest and because some of these Wats are really, really huge, that in fact, I just read in the, again, doing some research, that Google says is that the largest Wat or the largest temple in the United States is the temple of 10,000 Buddhas, and it has 480 acres or about 1.7 square kilometers. That's pretty big. Guess what? Wat Suan Mokkh is bigger than that. And it's not even considered a major big Wat. That, in fact, much of the property around some of these temple Wats is owned by someone else, but they don't mind at all that the monks are just out in their woods close to the temple. So I would say, in fact, that the ideal location for practice would be maybe a 20-minute walk to the front of the Wat. And the front of the Wat is a Wat that's way out from any town, so that you really get isolated. There's really nothing much to do and anything like that. And then we can begin to deal with that restlessness. You can start going to that deeper place of, wow, this is good enough. I finally have arrived. There really is no place to go and nothing to do, and I feel at home. I feel
Yeah,
like
that's interesting.
right.
Because even you can like, especially since you're in that setting right now, you can just keep coming back to that again and again, and it'll be like now you can see that very clearly because you don't have anything to distract you from just being at home and practicing, you know.
Mm-hmm. Yes,
Yeah,
to have. Go ahead.
I'm definitely gonna try to go to like the more secluded place, because I think that's really what I need to do. It is what I'm like most afraid of, I guess. So yeah, I'm definitely gonna talk to the abbot and see if I can get a more secluded place.
Mm-hmm. Well, back in
So
those
thank you for that.
days, back in those days, there was not much English language suttas available. That I remember, and this is kind of a joke. I think that I picked it up when somebody left it at a bus station. And what it was a motorcycle magazine. Where you remember I've talked about that I was really into motorcycles. I think in my life that I've owned more than 20 motorcycles, including BMWs. I had a Norton. I had a Triumph. I had a Harley. Of all of those, my favorite was the BMW. So anyway, um, this motorcycle magazine happened to have been in what little amount of luggage that I had before. I don't even remember exactly when that I got the magazine. I may have already been a monk when I got it, but something tells me no, that I'd gotten that magazine before I was a monk. But anyway, it had been laying around someplace, and in that time of boredom, I read that magazine from cover to cover 3 or 4 times until I knew it completely. There was nothing else to do but read this motorcycle magazine. I would have been better off if I had Dhamma. Maybe I'd have read the Dhamma that would have said, put this Dhamma book down and enjoy your life. And so that was that part of it. And when I said, oh, right, that's what's going on, I'm reading this motorcycle magazine instead of practicing correctly. And so now I'm getting bored. I'm wanting a motorcycle, and the likelihood of me getting a motorbike is very, very low. And so I figured that out and recognized that that motorcycle magazine was a hindrance to me. I didn't throw it out. I just put it away or something, put it in the corner, and then started to deal with that restlessness and recognizing this is okay. Achan Po has put me in this secluded place. Let me be in seclusion. Let me figure that out. Let me find out what that was about. And then, in fact, this is when several interesting things would happen, because he would come and visit me. And the question was I settled down enough so that when he came into the vicinity of my kuti, would I know that he was there? That in fact, in the beginning, he'd stand outside the kuti, and I don't know how long he waited for me to figure out that I had a visitor. He wouldn't cough, he wouldn't make any sound or anything. He'd just stand there. And pretty soon I began to get the feeling, so that I could actually get up out of the kuti, walk out on the porch while he was walking up. Some people would call it psychic. It's a sixth sense, but really, it's real. It's almost like that every human being has their own level of vibrations, and that when another person comes, are you aware of it? I practice that here on the porch. I have a kind of a game that I play with my dogs. And that is do I know when someone comes before the dogs do it, before the dogs know it? That if another dog comes into the yard and they don't know it, I'll start barking. They'll get up and they'll go and they'll take care of the situation, because I know that the dog is in the yard before the other dogs know that they're in the yard. But that's a kind of a psychic ability that dogs have, that they've got that territorial instinct and they're looking around just to see what's going on, but they're not doing it consciously. It comes deeper than that. And so that was one of the major trainings that I got from Achan Po, is to be aware, to be alert, to watch what's not watch in the sense of having work to do for watching, but just be there for whatever's coming up. And when Achan Po would show up, I learned to be able to meet him when he was coming, rather than wonder how long he had been there without me knowing it. But that takes a lot of time to get that restlessness out of us. And when we are finished with the restlessness, then we're able to see things. It's almost like the restlessness within us is kind of like having a camera that's not on a tripod. That the camera itself is shaky. And when the camera is shaking, it doesn't get a good image. But when the camera is stable, when it's not restless, then we can pick up on a whole lot of stuff. We got clear vision because the mind is not shaky. And so that's something that you can gain as a skill by going out into the woods, going out into seclusion, to get that restlessness out of you, so that you can settle down and actually be at home. And you're already at home, and this kuti is good enough.
And what about, for example, like Dhammaratos? Because I have bought like a second phone that has no internet connection just to download Dhammaratos, so I can take it with me without being distracted by anything else. But sometimes I feel like, yeah, even like reading books about the Dhamma or like watching talks by you or by other, um, yeah, other Dhamma people,
There,
it's like it's I do it because of boredom,
hmm
not because yeah, just to avoid the restlessness and not because I want to need to learn anything, you know.
hmm that's in fact correctly. That as many Dhamma books has been written over the centuries. The Dhamma books themselves can be a hindrance. We're reading the Dhamma books to have something to do. It's time structuring. It's our entertainment. And the question is, can we actually set the book down and actually practice the Dhamma that's in the book? To actually come to the state of, don't worry, be happy. Don't be restless. Be relaxed. Be where you are and enjoy the heck out of it. You've already got everything that you need. But you see, when we're in the front part of the Wat, or when we're out in society, there's a huge amount of stimulus, especially when we're traveling. And so we don't understand or we don't see that restlessness. We have to actually get to a place where, in that place, that kuti out in the woods, there's really nothing happening. Really, the only thing that can possibly happen is a Gila monster or a mule deer or something like that will show up. But that's just nature. And so by getting out there and getting stable in that environment, that's when we pick up on how much restlessness there already is built in. That built in is built right into the DNA. And so that restlessness can get really easily triggered. Can we see it and say, hey, I see that restlessness. Hey, I see that boredom. And all I have to do is see it.
This is something I've been thinking about, though. It's like, since restlessness is so built into us, it'll never, like, it doesn't go away because it's instinctual, right? Like, I guess. So, is it just the more you can see it and the more you can say, no, I'm at home right now, the less restless you become because you just can see it whenever it pops up?
Right, exactly. Um, it's very, very much like an argument that if one side of you argues, the other side argues. But in this, with the restlessness, if we have the restlessness and we don't see it, we deal with it by doing something. We continue in our movement. We're actually feeding the restlessness by being restless and going. But if we're practicing correctly and we get off where there's really nothing happening and nothing going on, the restlessness comes up. We can say, aha, I see you, restlessness. Aha, there you are. And you are not going to make me restless and miserable, that I'm going to deal with it happily. And then I can take a deep breath and say, wait a minute, I don't have any place to go and nothing to do. And my restlessness will then begin to settle down. That's what I was meaning by I wasn't practicing correctly, but I could begin to see that. Finally, I could see that because I was giving into the restlessness with desire to walk, to go someplace, to leave, to get a motorbike, to go back to the West and to get a job. But then when that was, wait a minute, I came all the way to Thailand to get away from that job. Why am I now thinking about going back to the West to get that job back again? The answer is because I'm not dealing with that restlessness right here, right now. I'm not dealing with that boredom. And talking to myself into there really is nothing to do and there is no place to go. Chill, baby. And pretty soon that restlessness kind of subsides. But it does get really intense when we're out in seclusion. I was very happy, in fact, when I read that from Eric. I said, aha, it's getting to him now. He is dealing with a new, deeper layer of stuff. That restlessness is very, very deep, very fundamental within us. And we almost never see it.
It really is. It's been there since it's been there, and we've been like playing into it, like feeding it, because we've had no clue for like however long, like years and years and years and years. We've had no clue that it's there. We haven't been able to see it. We've been dealing with it by going and doing other stuff the whole time. So now we're to reverse it. It's like, oh, it's like, but it is interesting and it does relax you.
Mm-hmm. Yes, once we begin to see it, once we can see it, now we can deal with it. Now we can make a change to it. So instead of giving in to the restlessness and going to the store and going to the front of the what and going to town and going to England and going and going and going to give in to that restlessness, having a relationship with it, an ignorant relationship, and we're doing a dance with our restlessness, which keeps that restlessness going. Once we come into a state like into seclusion, into what we call the back of the what, out in the forest, where there's very, very little stimulus, now we begin to see that all that stimulation that we were dealing with before, that's not there, but we still feel the need to be stimulated. We feel that need to go do something, that whatever we've got right now, which is nothing much at all, is not good enough. We could see it. We say, wait a minute, well, I can see that now. That restlessness, that deep restlessness, we can see it. And when we can see it, we can deal with it directly, almost like nurturing, that we can nurture our restlessness rather than being critical or giving into it. And so we can nurture ourselves. Oh, yeah, you're restless. That's all right because you're at home. Get used to it. Everything is okay. No place to go.
Dhammarato, when you were at the back of the what, were there like any other Westerners there, and like how often would you see or interact with like any other people? Because one of the thoughts that I have is, yeah, like when I'm at the back of the what, uh, like I won't have like a teacher around, but you like in the past you had like Ajahn Po, for example.
Mm-hmm.
So, and then I'm wondering like, is it good enough when I go to a place where I like don't interact with literally anyone else, because the place I would go to, it's like so secluded, like there's not even other practitioners around.
Okay. I'll treat that in several different. You asked several different questions. So the first answer, or the first question that you asked, was there anybody else around? The answer to that was is that back in the 1980s, Wat Suan Mokkh was quite an attraction. Bhikkhu Buddhadasa was alive, and that there were a lot of Westerners. They did the retreats, and so people would come to watch Soen Mokkh, and in those days they would come before the retreat starts. Then they would do the retreat, and after the retreat was finished, Ajahn Po would often give people a kuti, which meant then that everybody was getting this silent treatment. And everybody was there. Um, and some of them, it took a while to get used to, so they'd keep coming to the front of the Wat. They would keep coming to the restaurants and things outside the Wat and whatnot. But eventually, some of them did get a good experience by just staying in that kuti. I remember also when I was first ordained, normally the way that things work at Wat Suan Mok was that some of the monks, but not all of them, because of the place that it was and the size of the Wat, that if every monk went on Pendabat, it would in fact overwhelm the local people. There would be too many monks out for the village that we were, let us say, walking distance. And so there was a kitchen, and that kitchen was supported by money from Bangkok. And so a lot of us then, I did go on Bendabat. In fact, Achan Po took us on Bendabat, and he would go out with us. But after a while, we started under his auspices. We didn't go on Bendabat anymore. That we would let other monks do that, and so we would eat the food. So normally then the schedule would change from going on Bendabat and then having breakfast or eating from 8 o'clock until 9 o'clock, and then after 9 o'clock, then the lay people would eat. But after that, we would often the monks at Wat Suan Mok in those days would take food in their bowl. Some of the monks would wash their bowl in the washing place, and others would take their bowls without washing it, which meant that they had food in it that they would give to the animals throughout the day, or they could eat the food. But I remember Achan Po would bring food to me. It would be in the morning because we would eat at 8, but he would often show up at about 11:30 in the morning with some bananas or from an orange or some fruit that was locally available. I don't remember ever getting an apple, but it was often oranges or bananas that he would bring, a little group of bananas. I felt really cared for when he would bring that food to me. So I'm not sure about how you're abbot at that place, but I imagine that some of the senior monks are looking out for the new monks that are practicing in the seclusion. That one of the things that was well known about Achan Po is that nobody ever knew where he was unless he was there. When he's here, you know here he is. But when he is not here, you don't have a clue about where he is. And the reason for that was because he was out visiting the monks who were in seclusion, checking up on them, just walking down the path to see what was going on in front of the Wats. And so he did a lot of walking around like that. And the reason I mention this is because the abbot that you have, he may, in fact, if you've got that kind of Wat that has that secluded area, either he or another senior monk will go walking around. There will be somebody there for you if you need them.
That's the thing. Like the secluded area, it's like so far away from the main Wat that you actually have to like take a car. So I haven't been there yet.
That's
Yeah.
very interesting because I remember that for me in the back of the Wat there, it was like a 20-minute walk, maybe longer walk. So to go to the front of the walk and come back to the kuti, that would take an hour. Sometimes
Yeah.
I wouldn't even go to breakfast because it was just too far to go.
Yeah. Yeah. So yeah, I'm just gonna have to check it out how it works precisely. But I imagine that they have like some people in the other area that take care of the food and stuff, and so I should be able to get some fruits, and I don't think that should be like a problem.
Mm-hmm.
but I don't think anyone is visiting there. I'm pretty sure there would be no one visiting.
All right.
But I do have
Well,
a motorbike here.
we'll have to figure that out, won't we? We'll have to wait and see what happens when you're out there. So good luck. That would be a really good thing for you to do. I think you might be, in fact, Daniel, you might be ready for just going out and hanging out on your own for a few weeks, maybe a month, maybe 2 or 3 months,
Yeah,
with
yeah,
no place to go and nothing to do and no stimulus at all.
yeah, yeah. I'm just I feel up for the challenge, so I'm gonna try it. And
Yes, no challenges is quite a challenge, isn't it?
it is, it is, and yeah, I'm not sure yet if I should bring my phone, but
Well, guess
yeah.
what? That you've got to be very, very careful with that phone because the battery has got its own life. You
I
may
do have
not,
a
in fact,
really strong power bank.
yeah, you may not have a place to power it up.
Yeah,
I mean, if you're really secluded, there's no electricity out there. There's no electric fans. There is nothing, just real nature.
yeah.
I would be surprised if they've got a secluded area that's all powered up, because that actually will prevent you from actually being in seclusion. I can see you there in the middle of nowhere in your cootie with your cell phone going, and you don't even recognize that you're doing that out of restlessness.
Yeah, oh, I do recognize it very clearly. So, and that's why I think like I can see it like happening again and again and again that I leave retreats because like for a certain amount of time I will not give in to the restlessness, and it's getting longer and longer. Like
Hmm.
I've stayed at a single retreat for 1 month,
Hmm.
and I only left after 1 month. But as before, it was like 10 days would be my limit. So it's getting better. But yeah, I'm just gonna try it, and I will let you know how it goes.
Okay. Well, even though we've been talking about it from the perspective of the what life, Avery, you can actually take these stories that I've told today and start putting them into use. I mean, you're already secluded in
I
your
was
bedroom.
just thinking that. I was actually just thinking of that. I was like, well, I'm in my room and I have nothing to do for the next few hours, so I might as well relax and treat that restlessness a little bit.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, deal with it. Let it be there for you, because we automatically, in normal lifestyle, just give in to it. We're restless and we're told to go, and we go. But if you're practicing this seclusion, then the thing to do when that restlessness comes up, you can say, I see that. And guess what? I don't have to give in to it. I can sit here and smile and enjoy my life and just feel good. And then that restlessness will come up again as a thought, and we'll say, oh, wait a minute. I don't have to give in to that. I can just come
Yeah,
back.
it'll keep coming back, but I just gotta
Yeah.
keep, being like, oh, well, it's okay.
It will keep coming back because it's an instinct. But we can control those instincts. We can, with the higher part of the mind, the more intellectual, the thing that makes us human is what makes us or gives us the ability to, uh, let us say, override or overrule the hindrances and these underlying tendencies. Most of our society is dealing with the people just giving in to these urges, giving into their desires, giving into the restlessness, and we do it ignorantly. We're not even aware that there's this underlying restlessness that is there pushing us around because we're too busy giving into it. We're not questioning it. We're not looking at it. And so anyone can practice this issue of seclusion. The Buddha was actually quite big on seclusion. There's several suttas where he talks about it, like the log in the bog. You've heard me talk about that before, to where Imagine that a log like a cypress tree is fallen in the swamp, and it gets completely waterlogged. And that log cannot be set on fire because it's full of water. But if we take the log out of the bog and put it up onto the shore, like being at home, most meditators will think, oh, I have to just practice an hour a day, and that's all that I need. But in fact, the other 24, 23 hours, we're giving into that restlessness. So getting that log out of the bog long enough for it to really dry out may take a while. This is one of the intentions of the retreats, but unfortunately for most people, 10 days is just not enough. And not only that, but at a retreat, there's still a whole lot of stimulus, a whole lot of stuff happening, a whole lot of people following a whole lot of rules, and we're trying to pretend that they're not there when in fact they really are. But doing a few retreats is a good way of getting ready to actually go out in seclusion and really getting away from it and dealing with it day after day after day after day. No place to go, nothing to do, no challenges, no nothing is happening. And here I am just like this. Where's that motorcycle book? Where can I go? I'm going to quit this place. This is too much. And then we can see it and we can say, wait a minute, this is a deep tendency that we all carry around. It's built in. But we have a kind of mind that can overrule that, can override it, can make that restlessness into, let us say, a productive, wholesome thing by dealing with it, by seeing it, and recognizing that really most of the things that we do are irrelevant. Almost everything we do is irrelevant. But we do it because we're driven to do something, even if it's what we're doing is irrelevant. Let's go do something. But now that we're in seclusion and we can see it directly, we can say, oh, wait a minute. I don't have to go do anything right now, even though I feel like I've got to go do something. Let me sit here and nurture that. There is no place to go. You're all right already. But there is really nothing happening. Can you relax when you've got no stimulus? When you've got no work to do, let that be. And we begin to then settle down and not give in to that restlessness so much, so that we feel safe and secure. We feel like we're at home. We feel like that we have arrived, that we are in that holy place, and we don't have to go pilgrimage to the next holy place. We could just stay here and relax.
Is that actually? I just thought of that. Is that actually like how the second sort of drama works, where it's like you're so like secure and like used to it that you can like you're not only like, oh wow, everything's amazing, but you're like, I've practiced being here for so long that it's like now I've really dealt with a lot of that restlessness sort of stuff.
Mm-hmm. The more we see it, the more we deal with it, then the less there is of it. Because we're not giving into it anymore. We're not giving it energy. We're whacking it off. We're saying, oh, I don't have to feel that way. It becomes conscious for us. We can see it. That's the best part. Because then we can answer it with nurturing rather than giving in to its desires. So, Guy,
So
go ahead.
yeah, so yeah, the about the question I asked before. The reason I ask about the interaction is because I'm kind of like worried, I guess, that I will have even less interaction like on a daily basis in that place than you did at Suamog. So that it's gonna be like really hard. And that's why I was kind of asking like how much interaction would you have like in the back of the what at Suamog?
Let us say at a minimum that there really is not possible for you to be absolutely 100% secluded. But based upon normal life, let us say in the village, no seclusion, 100% action. Going into the Wat, now it's down to like 80% of action and 20% relaxed. But when you go to the back of the Wat, now you can begin to see that you're at 80% of restlessness. Let's start relaxing that, and over time, that in fact it may take a while for that restlessness to really show up, and then we can begin to deal with it. And as we deal with it, sometimes it's actually kind of easy to deal with because it hits us so hard that we say, wow, I'm either going to have to deal with this restlessness by quitting the monkhood and going back to the West and doing something really stupid, because at least it's doing something, or am I going to sit here and deal with this restlessness? And that way it's kind of easy to deal with it because we can see it as dukkha. The bigger the dukkha, the easier it is to see, the easier it is to deal with. It's the really subtle stuff that's hard to deal with because we can't even see it. And so getting into seclusion will bring that restlessness up so that you can begin to see it and deal with it happily eventually. Aha, I saw you. And there's no place to go. I don't have to get up to go even across the room. Where I am right now is good enough. So I hope that you guys can begin to practice that it actually is going to be beneficial to start staying away from things. You're not going to be able to stay away from 100% everything, except when you're dead. While you're still alive, you're going to have to deal with breathing. You're going to have to, you can't get secluded from your air. Even the forest is full of activity. That in fact, watching the activity of the Wat, or the back of the Wat in seclusion, is part of the dealing with the restlessness. That in fact, the restlessness comes because we're not paying attention to how much is actually going on in a place where not much is happening. Can you look at, see what's going on? Can you start paying attention to what's going on rather than thinking there's nothing happening and I'm bored? There's a huge amount of stuff happening. Pay attention. Wake up. Look at how you feel about what is happening. And it all becomes really easy that way. So I highly recommend people spending time in seclusion so that we can deal with some of that stuff that we don't even see most of the time. So guys, this is the time maybe to go practice some of that seclusion.
Yes, yeah, thank you very much, Avery and Dhammarato. This has been really helpful. And
Thank you guys.
yeah,
Yes.
I will let you guys know how it goes for me, the experiment.
I am so happy for you guys. I really am. Avery, I'm especially happy for you. I congratulate you. You're really moving along in the Dhamma. So this is maybe a time for you to start dealing with your own restlessness. Recognizing that
It'll be interesting. It'll be interesting, which is funny because usually we think of restlessness as not interesting, but dealing with it and seeing it and being like, oh well, this is a big thing that I can relax on and be okay with right now. That's interesting.
Excellent, excellent. Daniel, good luck with what you talked to about the with the abbot, and tell him that you're ready to go to the back of the Wat and see what he has to say about it.
Yeah, thank you very much for all the advice. I will let you know how it goes.
Excellent, excellent. We'll talk to you later then.
All right.
We'll see you guys.
Yeah, sure.
Bye bye.
All right. Have a good day, guys. Bye bye.
Okay. Bye-bye.